All right, so my name is Liana. I'm a speech pathologist at Liberator. And I have been working at Liberator for a couple of years, and we've been doing some telehealth. Probably, I guess we've been doing a form of telehealth since I started in Liberator, which was 5 years ago. So I've got a little bit of experience in it, but I still feel like I'm doing a massive learning curve, and I'm definitely not 100% comfortable with this mode of service delivery. Anyway, so I've got Ash on the questions, and she's going to keep a track of questions as they come in. If you can also just send us your email, we will email you some resources that we have. So that will include the reference list of the articles that I'm going to go through, as well as some websites. And also there are some tools that I'm going to show you that I've been using for, I guess, how to plan my therapy with my clients that I think could be quite useful for you guys if you're going to be doing some telehealth with different people. Okay, so we'll get started. Oh, I'm seeing some of my friends. Hello, please be kind to me, and I will ring you all later and be like, ah! Okay. All right, so I basically went through and pulled all of the articles that I could find that were going to be around telepractice that might relate to complex disability. I found that there was a lot of evidence, and particularly in the speech pathology realm of all the info being thrown at me around telehealth, it all seemed to be around fluency or articulation or areas of practice that I'm not very skilled in and I don't do much work in. So I found that my clients weren't relevant to that group. So I had a look to see what is actually there that can give me some sort of basis to feel that I'm making an ethical decision around service delivery with my clients in this very uncertain time. So I did pull this one, which was sort of the main telepractice article from ASHA that I could see. And it just gave me definitions. So it said, we're doing applications of telecommunications technology to deliver a professional service. So it could be linking me as a clinician to a client, or it could be linking me to a clinician for supervision. And I think a couple of you guys probably have done that. I think we've all become fairly confident and competent in doing sort of e-learning packages and meeting online. The two things that I found interesting in this was synchronous and asynchronous telepractice. So synchronous is when we're doing now, so this would be considered synchronous, or asynchronous is that Ben's recording this so that if anybody feels like being bored to tears later on, they can re-watch this. So hello, if you are watching this, well done. Okay. So the next article I had a look at was a systematic review of adults with acquired brain injury. I thought that looking at the brain injury population might give me more of a baseline, because I know that some people with acquired brain injury also become people that use AAC. What I liked about this article was that it was a systematic review, and that always makes me excited. What I did find is that it didn't really give me clear information around the severity of the brain injury, the treatment over time, and the intensity of treatment that had been face-to-face beforehand. It basically gave me the conclusions: limited finding, lack of diagnostic accuracy and treatment efficacy data, further research is needed. However, watch this space and take more data on it. I know that certainly a lot of work has been happening around using social media, particularly Twitter, in the brain injury space as a resource to sort of decrease isolation and to help them get information and to help with some specific goals, and that's been quite successful. So Melissa Brunner is the academic that's been leading that research, so look her up if you're interested. Okay, so the next one is, this one I found quite interesting. So this was Kate Anderson in Melbourne and Sue Ballenden and Roger Stancliffe in Sydney. So they looked at 13 speeches with some parents and tried to do some telehealth. What I found really interesting about this one was the barriers that they threw up. And granted, this was published in 2015, but I don't think that we've necessarily got significantly better systems in place than we may have had 5 years ago. They found, so overall people found it useful. They found the alternatives viable, but there was definitely some barriers identified around, you know, internet, the equipment. Some families found it very overwhelming. I mean, it obviously looked at a lot of those benefits of, you know, parent training, and you could see the child in their own home, which was also really good. The outcomes were pretty good for parent implemented AAC modelling. We had positive change across language domains. It looked good for addressing service inequity. And I guess the telehealth research has all sort of been, rather than we've got a plague and we all need to make sure we don't get sick so that the hospitals don't get overwhelmed. Most of this research was done in that, you know, with that viewpoint of how do we support rural and remote families? How do we connect people that have specific needs with the skilled clinicians that have the skill set and the knowledge to support them with very specific service delivery needs. They found, again, it was quite useful. But a lot of the barriers that were thrown up was that it's the speechies that are putting up the barriers and not the parents. So people did always view face-to-face as superior because we all love to have face-to-face catch-ups. I know I certainly prefer to deliver training face-to-face than from my kitchen. It was a good way to sort of mitigate some of those barriers that also lead to device abandonment. We know that one of those key factors in device abandonment is families not feeling sufficiently empowered or educated to be able to use the device adequately across their different environments. And this is another way of providing more intensive support. And by intensive, I don't necessarily mean an hour every day. I mean, even if it's 10 minutes every day for a week, that could be seen as a more effective support means. So they basically said, quite good, we need more research. They got similar sort of outcomes as well. The next one was a speech pathologist in the US working with facilitators to provide school-based speech and language intervention. This wasn't looking at AAC, this was looking at language therapy. What they did is they used a helper. So this article spoke a lot about the helper and the helper's role in, I guess, supporting that facilitation of AAC. So I thought that was interesting. The e-helper, I guess, would be the parent in our situation, or maybe if your student is still going to school and it's at one of the SSPs. I've heard some of them have like 30 or 35 kids coming in each day, or one school I heard had 15 today, which normally they'd have 120. You know, there might be enough staff within the school to be able to do one-on-one support with them, and you could do some coaching and training with the teacher perhaps. Another interesting one, this was done in Sydney. So Monique Hines, Michelle Lincoln and Anika Frackman did this one. So Monique is based at Sydney Uni, and she's one of my friends from uni, and she's been looking at this area of telepractice and how to support people with telepractice for a number of years. This has been her area of research. I guess the most highly publicised part of her research would have been the wobbly hub and spoke model that you might have seen from Sydney Uni, that was based out of Dubbo. So they did some wheel and spoke sort of model of services to that part of New South Wales, so out past Dubbo. And obviously that was because to do with distances and access of clinicians in rural and remote New South Wales. They were interested in looking at that therapeutic alliance. A lot of the clinicians sort of threw up saying, well, how am I going to build that therapeutic alliance? How am I going to get that acceptance with the client and also with the caregiver? And I just don't think it's going to work. And that was their question when they looked at this. They really wanted to know, is there actually a difference? Can you build an adequate rapport with somebody over the internet? And I think eHarmony has taught us that many people might. I know that there may be some people on here that have tried internet dating, and then when you meet the person, he is not the prince he may have been beforehand. So I guess from that, you can build a good therapeutic alliance. You can get a good, I have been to a Tinder wedding, so I suppose you can actually meet someone through that. So they found that it did facilitate good engagement. There was some nice rapport building, and it didn't appear to be difficult. The therapeutic alliance was strong. They went through and they used some formal testing to actually look at the strength of the therapeutic alliance, and there was no difference between face-to-face, which is really nice. They have also published this as another one looking at multiple stakeholder perspectives. So this would be the same sort of part of research. So they used structured procedures, but they found similar outcomes. Again, they're looking at the same themes. We're wanting to have, this was again with language therapy. This one was done in Tamworth. But what we found is it was again, the telepractice was done with a helper, and the facilitator was the person that had that really pivotal role. They were the ones that we really needed to help get the children across the line and to participate. There were some barriers thrown up. People were sort of a bit scared of the tech initially, and I think we can all identify with that. Interesting, 24% reported connection issues. So, you know, people have tried and then there's been connection breakdown. So I guess that also tells me the NBN is great, but I've certainly had some issues with my telephone and internet over the past couple of days, just as it really ramps up with people using it, I guess. Again, the barriers were with the clinicians, not with the clients. And it was I was interested to see in here, they actually spoke about some of the school principals being really excited because it meant, oh, no, thanks, Rita. Yeah, no, I did that before and I couldn't move it on. It was annoying. Where was I? Yes, so the principals really liked that collaborative approach and the fact that they were upskilling people within their environment. I think that could be a really nice way of looking at research into the future, actually. What do we need to do? Like, what's our next question around research? If we're doing parent coaching through telepractice, are we getting better outcomes and are we upskilling our families to support AAC in a better way? There was another one that I liked, which was supporting family members of people with TBI using telehealth, a systematic review again, based in Sydney. They were using video conferencing, web-based learning, phone calls, group teleconferencing. It had similar outcomes. So they found that the support towards families with TBI via telehealth was really strong, and families felt very supported and they felt very satisfied. However, a third felt that face-to-face would have been more beneficial. So yeah, it's interesting to see. We're not seeing differences in outcomes, but the perception is that it's not as good. But the reality, it doesn't appear to be that way. Now, this is the golden article. I don't know if you can see it if I hold it up. I'll make this one available to you. Hopefully it's a free one. Clinical aspects related to Tele-AAC, a technical report. I got this one and I was like, oh, hallelujah. So what I found really interesting about this one is that it spent a lot of time talking about how you need to be an expert in both AAC and telepractice systems. So there's no good, I guess, jumping on, and if you're not confident in what you're doing as a clinician, if you haven't planned well, and if you're not confident in how to use the telepractice system, it's going to all go pear-shaped and become a debacle. So I found that an interesting point because, you know, we desperately want to see our clients, but if we're not competent with the technology, it's not going to be a positive experience for people. So I did like that they acknowledged that it might not be for everybody, which was good. And it goes through and it gives me some stuff about, you know, general considerations and ethical ones. The tech needed. Now, the tech needed, I found quite interesting because depending on the type of service that you're providing, would depend on the technology that you actually want. Again, there's that whole thing of you need a facilitator, you need a high-speed internet, you need cameras, you need audio, and you need to have sufficient training and assurance from everybody that's involved. They also looked at different delivery that could be done. And this is the stuff that I found really interesting. Let me skip to it so I get it correctly. So direct text-based telehealth. So this is where you had a shared text activity. So the client, if they've got text to speech, would sit there typing into a box. So like you're typing into the chat messages now, I could type a message back to you. So we're communicating via text, basically. Now that could work. I haven't delivered a text-based, well, I suppose I have delivered a text-based service. A number of adults that I know that use AAC and MinSpeak systems, they are also on Facebook, and they are my friend on Facebook, and they will text me via Messenger. Last night I got a message from one of them with some device problems that were happening with her device, and I wrote back saying, I have no idea what's going on, it sounds possessed, but it was still support for her. So I think that would be my interpretation of direct text-based tele-AAC. It would be my clients texting me saying, hey Leanna, I want to learn how to program a cell to delete some things in my Spotify account. Can you troubleshoot it and send it back to me? So I certainly do that. Direct tele-AAC with 2 speech generating devices. Now this was the one that I thought was a bit of a disaster, and I actually can't see in reality how this would work terribly well. So what you needed to have was your client in location A with their speech generating device, and then you would be in location B with your speech generating device. Frequently therapists have told me they don't have the luxury of having their own accent in the back of the car like me, and so I don't think that that's necessarily going to be the implementation for all of us. You also then needed to have a lot of webcams, because this one then said you needed to have a webcam that would split the screen so that you could see what I'm modelling on mine, and then also a webcam in the other location so that I could see what they're modelling on theirs. So then you'd end up with this split screen of, you know, 2 different devices, as well as potentially what's happening in that interaction space around your clients, like who's there with them facilitating. And then also if you were using a material, you'd need part of the screen to actually present whatever material you were going to be using as a therapy tool. So I wasn't quite sure how that one would work in practice. I felt like that was going to be very stuff heavy, and that you might get overwhelmed with the amount of different things being thrown at you. Direct telehealth with 1 speech generating device. That's what I do. So that's using my screen sharing, so using my new voice. So if I go out of here and I open up my new voice, you can now see my new voice and my game bar for Xbox. I've become a gamer. While I sit here waiting, I've become a gamer. It's great. It's taking over my life. So you could do direct telehealth with 1 speech generating device. And I can also show you here on my computer how I do things. So you can see my screen. You can see my cursor. So you have to be able to see my cursor. I don't know, can you see it? Is it coming up on the screen? And then you can see where I press. I just press the work key, and then I've just pressed work. Now the problem with this is that it's a bit laggy. So, great, you can see it. Thanks, Carol. So they did make a point of saying that you need to be able to actually see the modelling. So you need to be able to see me pressing on the different buttons so that you can see that model. So that's how I would be using my simulation software. So you can use that for our devices, and then also for some of the other devices. I know you can do that for Toby as well, and Dynavox, which is really good. So you should be able to apply those principles to anybody that has a dedicated device. And then it also says, though, that you might need to have a webcam in the other location. So it's becoming very, again, stuff-based. My biggest consideration with this, you can't see my little cursor, okay. Thank you. So my biggest problem with this is you can't see everything properly, and that it is a little bit laggy. So I'm not sure how useful that's going to be for somebody that might have, you know, if they've got decreased visual tracking skills, or if they've got, you know, an attention span that's difficult to sort of maintain. You're going to need to have somebody who's very persistent to look at that if it's the AAC user. I actually think it's probably going to be of more benefit to have your simulation screen there to show the modelling for a parent. So if you've got a parent in the room with the child, they could then model on the child's device, but you've got the screen here and you'll say to them, oh, I'm pressing the eat down the bottom, and then they can see the first part of the sequence or something. So yeah, I think we're still sort of figuring it out a little bit. The next one is the integrated speech generating device. So this is an interesting one. So on the accent devices that we support, there is something you can use called Team Viewer. So does that come up? Yep. So Team Viewer is just like a plugin you can get on your computer. If you have a client with an accent, you can enable internet on their device. If you've enabled internet on the device, it will have Team Viewer already on there. So just search, because you know how it's a Windows tablet that's been basically pimped up. So the accent device, if you hide New Voice and you go into just the Windows computer component of it and find Team Viewer, you'll see that there is a partner ID. So see, I've got my ID here of 15922918825. That will show up on your accent device. If I type that in, I can do a file transfer or remote control. So I can actually take over my client's device remotely to show them things. And I know they've been using that quite successfully for a while in the States and the UK, but for some reason we didn't know about it. Anyway, so you can use that, which can be a really nice way to take over your client's device. What I would say with that, though, is to be really careful about the ethical considerations and to make sure that the client might not necessarily see you setting them up with the internet, and that the parent is the person that has the password to do that. Okay. You've also got your indirect, which is your active consultation. Can you use it on iPads? I'm not sure, Kira. You'd have to look into it. I'm really not sure. Sorry, mate. Active consultation. So your active consultation is it's the most intensive form of indirect services. This is what you do for parents that are really new to AAC, or for a clinician that is really just learning how to do that. So this is where you do a video conferencing session, basically. And this is where you would have a phone and an earpiece, and you would be providing them with sort of on the fly, I guess, feedback. So think like if any of you have done Hannon training, think like your Hannon training, you'd be there on the fly watching them and telling them what to do. It's going to be most successful if they have an earbud, the child can't see you, and you can watch them in real time and provide feedback. You've got your e-supervision, which is like via your text messages kind of one. And then you've got your e-mentoring for telehealth, but that's your synchronous or asynchronous. So again, store and forward. So that's where you might have a video and send it on. And then you've got your training for tele-AAC. So this would be considered a training for tele-AAC because you're being provided with training on AAC. This is what Liberator consultants have been doing for years. So whenever you've had a meeting with any of my colleagues or with me and we've been going through something on Pass or Chat Editor, that would be considered training for tele-AAC. Okay, so that's all the boring sort of research to back it up. Basically, one thing I really want to just, really make sure you're aware of, know what's going on in your background and who is in your house, and let them know that you're doing telepractice. You can see here, these are my two favorite ones. I know, Gemma, I'm with you, honey. I want Pass on Mac as well. So this one is the newscast where his children came in and did dance behind him. And also there's a uni student who went to the loo while on her video conferencing and didn't realise. So just be aware if you've got your camera on, and just also let your parents know that you can see stuff happening in the background, so that if, teenage child comes slinking past, or the spouse is sort of doing shift work and is walking past in their pajamas, just let them know, because people aren't always aware. Sometimes headphones can help with clarity. Sometimes they may not. It's just a bit of a play and see how it goes. What your client needs, they need to have an internet-enabled laptop or computer, or a tablet, laptop or computer. I had a client that tried to use their phone with me. It wasn't sufficient for them to be able to see what I was modeling on my device, and also for them to be able to see the different things that I wanted to show them. On the accent, you can use TeamViewer that we spoke about before. And then what have I done to support my clients? So yesterday I doused myself in Glen 20 and went to visit some clients. There's some brothers that I support. So one is on an accent device, one is on a chat fusion device. And I went to their home to help them understand what teleconferencing would be, and then to also get their dad set up. So we connected a webcam to their home computer. I took a backup of both of my clients' files. We made the decision not to have me remotely hack into his accent, because the risk of him being a clever little one and figuring out how to try and call me remotely from his, or just to do weird stuff in the back of his accent, was too great. So it was a really nice session that we did. We used Zoom to call their behaviour clinician, and it was lovely because one of the teenagers was then able to run between my computer, his home computer, and still see the behaviour clinician. He was then able to actually take my laptop and run away to his home computer and see the different angles of himself. He was quite distracted looking at himself, but the behaviour clinician did report back to me that she saw he was quite interested and he was staring very intently at her when she was chatting to him. I wasn't sure what he was saying to her because he did run off with my laptop at that point, and I was with the dad and the other sibling. But that dad did say he found that a very useful session because he knew what was expected of him. He knew how to use the technology. He knew that I would email him a code. He just had to click on it, and he knew that everything worked. So he knew that he had to download the Zoom plugin. So obviously we've stopped doing face-to-face with clients now. I was a bit sneaky to do that one, but I knew they wouldn't be able to do it otherwise. So those, I think if you can talk them through on the phone, that could be really helpful for some of them. And yeah, we'll see how it goes, telehealth with them. So I know some of you are keen to know, how do we support children and adults that might be on the more, I guess, severe end of the spectrum. I've been speaking with the other LAMP trainers in Australia and in the States, and I've been chatting with them about what works. So I had a chat with them, and I thought I'd be prepared. So I downloaded Zoom, I had my goals. I picked a child that for my caseload was actually really easy. So yeah, I thought, oh, I've got my easy client. This will be fine. Like, he doesn't have huge behaviours in the scheme of my clients. And, you know, he can attend with tabletop activities with me for like 50 minutes normally. So I was like, this is pretty good. He's a pretty, you know, he's a bit of a rock star on his iPad with the LAMP app. And his dad is like a really, really amazing supporter of his son. Like, he's such a champion dad. So what could possibly go wrong? Anybody got any ideas of what could possibly go wrong with this one? You can type it or unmute yourself and tell me something. Do you think it was a success? Yeah, no, it was not a success. It was a very awkward situation. And I was thinking about it, what's happened in terms of the readiness to learn? So what did I do to get him ready to learn? So Dad had taken him for a walk beforehand in their backyard, and he'd done some going up and down on his scooter. So he was ready to learn, and he just finished a snack when I logged in. So we had the readiness to learn component done. The consistent and unique motor patterns were fine because he had his app. Auditory feedback. Now, the problem with the auditory feedback, when I did it, so I'm going to see if I can join on my iPad. So the auditory feedback was laggy. It didn't work, basically. How do I turn off the sound of my iPad? There we go. Okay. So that didn't work at all. What we found was that I was trying to model on my device. I was then trying to model on my iPad, and the auditory feedback didn't work for him. It was too much of a delay. He couldn't see what I was doing. So when I was doing this on the device, so I'm already back to the full thing and that screen is still lagging. So when I was modeling my sentences, he couldn't see it in real time, and the voice coming out of my laptop wasn't quick enough for him. It just didn't work. So Dad was trying to model and I was doing on the fly kind of support to him, but again, it wasn't working in a way that it needed to. When we were looking at the natural consequences, he was starting to show signs of behaviour that I couldn't pick up. Even though I was watching on a camera, I couldn't see the little small things that I was normally able to see in the clinic room. So he was starting to show signs of distress with his feet. I couldn't see his feet. I only noticed he was getting distressed when he started to do the chewing of the jumper. Chewing of the jumper is level 1 behaviour, so I was like, that's okay, we can push on through. I managed to engage him with the Toca Boca Monsters app pretty successfully for quite some time. So that worked well, but I had 20 minutes of that, I think, and that worked really, really well with the Toca Boca app. I was able to get him, he didn't understand at first, he couldn't control it because he was watching me on an iPad. So that was hard for him because he just didn't get it. He was able to then tell me things like eating mushroom, eat the mushroom, no cooking, and eat the tomato, cut the sausage. So he was able to give me his normal sort of sentences. That was a game that we'd played many times before, so he knew it, he knew the target. So I started with a game that he was comfortable with. I then like to force literacy on all my kids. This child is hyperlexic. His literacy is actually very good. And he does have a fairly good level of understanding. So I thought, well, let's try a book with him. So we tried Max and the Grasshopper. At this point, I started getting rocking and throwing himself back in the couch kind of behaviours. So it was at this point that I lost him. He didn't understand having to do a whole session on a tablet with me, and it sort of descended into chaos. So I was only managing to keep him for about 25 minutes, and then it was gone. So this was my experience of a child with level 3 autism trying to do therapy. I suspect I'm going to have more success with my kids with physical disabilities, and I'll talk about one of them next. But I know that lots of you guys are supporting kids with level 3 autism, and they're kind of the ones that I think a lot of us are the most worried about, because you know, if they don't have us supporting them as well and they're no longer going to school, who is there supporting them? You know, what ethical considerations do we have to continue to play a role? So I contacted Cindy Halloran and John, and I was like, guys, talk to me, what works? So they tried doing telehealth for LAMP in the States from the Centre for AAC and Autism a couple of years ago. They found that it was very much that coaching sort of style was the only thing that worked. So they prepared the thing and then they gave strategies and feedback while the parent was working with their child. They found it difficult if the webcam wasn't positioned properly because they couldn't see that interaction. They couldn't see that shared focus. So important for LAMP. We need to make sure that that child is really sharing that focus. They also found that the child was getting distracted if they could hear the coaching. So the parents had to have some earbuds in. So I'm not sure if the NDIS will fund buying some of those, you know, some of those more expensive noise cancelling earbuds. What have I got? I've got these fancy ones. What are they? Jabra. And you've also got your Apple ones. So that's how they found it worked best. They got some fairly good feedback from these clients that they did. However, they did find that it was no substitute for face-to-face therapy, particularly with the more severe kids. So they deliberately chose children for this study that were, you know, the hard ones. They were the real level 3 behaviour kind of, you know, challenging ones. So what would I recommend for LAMP? I would recommend a mix of home programming and telehealth that is parent coaching based. So the issue is going to be, I think, finding time where the parent is available to actually have that tele-coaching session with you, where you can go through and actually set your goals and activities in a very specific manner. And then from that, they will then need to have to record themselves doing a session with their child, or they'll have to do an activity with their child in front of you. So whether you're doing that synchronous or asynchronous mode of support, I really think it's going to be important to be able to provide that positive feedback around, you know, you did this really well, how about you try adding this little element onto it next time? Or, oh gosh, did you see when you did that, what happened? What do you think about that? So back to those video coaching, parent coaching strategies. And I guess if you need support with how to coach a parent and how to provide sensitive feedback on therapy intervention, that's something you could probably talk to your clinical supervisor about. Yeah, so I guess the communication partner is the one that's really doing the heavy lifting in this situation. So they need to be the advocate for their child, you know, assist in the operational components. You know, obviously we want to be doing parent-led intervention that does have clear goals. I think it's really important to identify barriers. So I had a conversation with a mum this morning and they want to do a device trial. His review, I think, is in June, and they want to get a proper device for him because the app is just too laggy for him. And, you know, I want to do some tricky stuff to help his access, which means I need to be able to explode keys and shrink them down in a session. And I want to use key guards creatively with him as well, with, you know, blacked out sections on them. And I can't do that on an iPad at the moment. So she was saying to me, look, I really want to do that, but she's got 3 children home from school at the moment, plus her son with autism, and she's also pregnant. So she's kind of like, you know, I don't realistically know when I'm going to get the time. So she and her husband are going to work together to find a time when maybe he's going to be home and can do some targeted activity with the children. So she's got half an hour to chat to me and sort some stuff out. I guess we then need to monitor the progress. So this is where I'd say your goal setting is really important, and to make sure that you are setting goals that are going to be very measurable and clear. I keep on thinking back to Iona Novak's research around home programming at this point, and around her stuff around GAS goals, and how 50% of the GAS goal, I guess, success was around that collaborative goal setting component with the parents. So actually doing that properly with them around, okay, so this is where they are now. What's the next step? Oh, okay, and how do you think you could support them to do that next step? So those kinds of intervention goal settings, and then monitoring the progress. I guess you can monitor the progress if you've got video. You can monitor the progress with you know, your standard data collection that you would take while watching it, but then also flicking on your data monitoring realized language on your devices that you have. I believe it may be coming to the iPad LAMP Words for Life app shortly in an update that's pending for Australia. We've been getting whispers about that because we've been pushing for it. So we also want to know about modelling. So modelling is so important, as we know, around implementation for AAC. If you can't model, how are they going to learn? So we know that modelling is probably, you know, well, we know it's super critical. We know that people have to be trained in modelling the device. And this goes back to sort of normal implementation opportunities. So why do we create them? Because we know the AAC community have few opportunities. We want to change the opportunities away from requesting and labelling, which are probably going to be the easiest ones to start with. I have no problem with starting telehealth with a parent and getting the child to request a particular thing on YouTube, or, you know, request something from the fridge. Anything you can do at the start of telehealth to give the parent some success, even if it's a skill we already know the child can do. It's about getting the parent comfortable with this platform initially. And that's the thing that I really want to push and promote. We need to make sure that, you know, the parent feels supported and is advocated, you know, empowered, I guess is the word I'm after. They're empowered to be able to do this properly. So these are the worksheets that I want your emails for, so we can send them on to you. This is from I think it's a 4-hour training package that our parent company in the States has been doing, and I just steal stuff from them shamelessly all the time. This is a really nice planning tool that you could do around, like, what's the environment of the child. So if I'm thinking of my teenage boys yesterday, the environment, you know, is their home, there's dad, there's the 2 teenage boys with significant disabilities, and there's also the carer. What did you say? Wants and needs, exchange information, social closeness and etiquette. So his usual thing to me is to go, which means he wants his nails painted. I refuse to paint his nails until he gets out his device and tells me, I want green nail, I want purple finger, and then we can paint the nails. So these are the kind of things that I'm really interested on. And then you also can go through wants and needs. Well, what are his wants and needs? He wants his nails painted. Exchange information. The information exchange is going to be pretty. Social closeness and etiquette. Actually, my little lamp kiddo, when he saw me first of all on the internet, he was like, oh, and he waved and he was like, hello, Liana. And, you know, that went on for a good 5 minutes. He just kept on saying hello, and I was repeating back, hello. And, you know, I tried to move the conversation on, but it was this real like, oh, hello, hello, hello. He found it very exciting. So you can look at the functions of communication. That's one worksheet. This one, if any of you have done any training that I've ever done before, would be very familiar with this one. I love this so much for helping parents to choose vocabulary that they're going to use. So writing in it, what item, activity or lesson topic are we going to do? And it might be a case of, let's learn to use the Dyson, or let's spray and wipe the bench. I don't care, you know, like whatever you're doing at this point. You know, so you type in here, what's an activity? Okay, so book reading. That's my client ringing me. So what would we have to initiate or request recurrence? More. What did my client tell me when I was doing things? Stop. So going through that with the parent and getting the words. This one, how do I turn off my iPad? I think that's what I have to do. I was going to try and link in my iPad, but I can only figure out how to do that on Zoom. I haven't figured out how to do it on GoToMeeting yet. So that's a bit of an issue. So this one can be quite good with the parents, because again, it's that whole thing of you go through, you come up with the words that you want to say. And then if you've done this with the family, this is when you then go back to your emulation software, go into the vocabulary display options, go to write with icons. And if I've got that sheet that I've just done with, you know, mum and dad, and I know these are the words, whatever, these are the words that we're going to have, I can then print this out, or I can save it as a Word document. I can say, I can type up an activity. The activity is book reading. These are our target words. The book is Where is the Green Sheep? So then you might have, you know, you might put in whatever target words you've got, print that out. The family have an activity that's good to go. So Ash and I will, so we're going to be creating some activities for our clients, and we're very happy to share those with you. So we'll send out stuff as we create it, but if you have particular, things that you think would be useful, let us know, and we're happy to create them and send them out. But that's kind of how we would do it. So I think the most important thing is to actually engage the parent in selecting the activity, because then you're going to get that joint attention and interest, and then actually getting them to identify the words so that they know exactly what the goals are. This is another way that you can do it. So you'll see here down the bottom, you've got the functions of communication with wants and needs, exchange of information, and social closeness etiquette. It's really interesting, depending on the different ages of children, that and where they're up to in terms of their communication competence. That will depend on how many, I guess, which section you're more in. So your early communicators tend to be doing more of the wants and needs functions, and your exchange of information tend to be your more advanced communicators. So you and I would probably be using the exchange of information, functions of communication, and potentially social closeness and etiquette. For me, gossiping and teasing is probably a high one, or commenting and expressing feelings. So, you know, we're not going to be requesting permission a lot of the time. We're not going to be, you know, requesting objects a huge amount of the time, unless ordering Uber Eats is requesting objects at this point, I'm not sure. But this is a really interesting way to do it, because if you go through and you actually think about what functions is this child doing, you can go through with the parent, figure it out. Oh, do you know what? We want them to request objects. What objects do we want them to do? Okay, so here's request objects, and we can stick it in, you know, ball, bubbles, whatever. Okay, we want them to greet. We want them to greet mum, dad, brother, you know, dog, whatever. So you can go through and actually even have that printed out, stick it up on the fridge. Now, this was one that I really like. Look, plan, do. I think this is going to be a full training package. Here we go. So look at the environment. So this is where you say to the mum, what is actually happening? So who's communicating? So you've got, you know, child and brother B. What's already happening? So my example yesterday, I had my 2 clients. They what was already happening, I had both of them trying to pull me to show me that they picked some flowers on a walk with their support worker. They were also both trying to raid the cupboards for more chips. Where are things located? There was a lot of stuff in the environment. There was balls, there was pens, there was computers, there was tablets, there was music. How will you change the environment and plan those opportunities? So I was able to chat to the support worker about, well, you're already getting them to do some movement, so for going for walks, so that's an opportunity. So how do we change the environment? Why don't we bring the device with us on a walk? What might he want? What might he need when we're on the walk? What could we exchange information? So we could exchange the information of things like, you know, that's pretty, or look. Social interaction, if you see anybody, you could greet them. Apparently he started running up to randoms in the shops to grab their nails to look at it, since he's become obsessed with nail polish. So I think we need to probably teach him some social interaction skills around saying hello, look, you know, and then what will be modeled on the device. So how are we going to model on the device? We might model on the device pretty, look, go, stop, because we've got to stop before we cross the road. How will we prompt? So how do we prompt with this particular client? So make sure that you know what's the prompting level required for your client, and with the parent, make sure that they're aware. What prompting do you need to give to your child? Do they need to have a physical prompt? Do you need to just do a proximal prompt on the device? Do you need to provide a model? What's the hierarchy of prompting for your particular client around the particular goal? Because obviously different goals are going to require different levels of prompting. And that's kind of, I think that's a nice sort of plan that you could sort of use as a rough template with a family if you're going to be planning their therapy. And I've certainly been investigating this information with all my families. I'm still tying them up into nice shiny packages, but it's a bit of a work in progress for all of us. So that was all sort of the implementation stuff that we've sort of been working on and using at this point. So we sort of planned today to be a little bit of information from me that went on for a lot longer than it needed to, so I apologise for that. And then an opportunity for you guys to ask questions. So if any of you have questions that you want answered, now is the time. Otherwise, you can just escape. But yeah, any questions? No? No questions? A question I have for you guys, are there any particular resources or training opportunities or anything you wanted to learn more about that would be useful for us to sort of provide you to support you with what you're doing at this time? I know some people have said to me things like, oh, we'd love to have an hour on video modeling or things like that. Because we're really happy to sort of create resources and provide opportunities for you guys to learn more as we go into this fun time. High physical needs, where normally we've been climbing carrying balls, how could we do that? Yeah, so that's an interesting one. Hang on. Yeah. So with the high physical needs, yeah, so we can't climb and throw balls, etc. necessarily with them because we're in a different place. And again, I think that comes back to coaching whoever the communication partner is on the other end. And again, when we're going through and planning for the opportunities and we're creating that readiness to learn, we'd be going through saying, okay, well, we're going to throw a ball. I have a child that I work with where the only activities we really do is we throw stuff and we jump on the trampoline. And it's around, I guess, talking through the parent, how would you do that? How are you going to throw the ball with the child? Do you have a ball in the house? Making sure they've actually got those activities there. And that to me comes down to parent training and supporting them to be ready to learn. Does anybody else have anything they wanted to add to that? Okay. So there's some comments here around wanting to see a demonstration of telehealth with ASD kids. I'm not really comfortable sharing videos on a telehealth platform of children doing therapy. I just think there's too many, I'm not comfortable with that from a consent perspective. I know other therapists are, but that's just not something I'm comfortable doing. If any families are happy to do that, we can certainly try and collate some, but at this point, none of my families really are. They're happy for me to have stuff, but they're not happy for me to sort of share it in a forum like this where people could, you know, pull out their phone and record it from the screen. Yeah, I've used meta language kits and adapted activities for kids and devices with instructions to the parents and printed resources. Oh, Riata, nice. That sounds good. That sounds really good. Yeah. Oh, I've seen some of yours with that. That's amazing. Video modeling, videos, yes, Darren, we want them. Yeah. I don't know about Proloquo to go, Amy, sorry. It'd be great to have some video modeling for kids, similar to some of the pod ones available as you're reading a story and modeling on LAMP, playing with Play-Doh. Yeah, we can definitely come up with some activities of how to model on LAMP. Yeah, we can do that, Carol. Thank you for the suggestion. Minty, the activities we can use in sessions and how do we model the use of the device? So again, we can, if you go to the language lab, that's another website that has free access at the moment. You can get a free login. If you go to the language lab, there's heaps of activities on there. So I know Jane Odom is the writer of this. She's doing lots of, if you go onto the PRC Facebook page, she's been doing some tours of the language lab, like what resources are available, how you can use things. But there's lots of activities in here under the different lesson plans. So it's written in stages. So stage 1 is sort of your earlier ones. Jane says that most of the downloads happen to be for stage 1 and 2. So in the website schematics and stuff, it's all stage 1 and 2 that's being downloaded all the time. So these are the activities for some of these kids, and they have cheat sheets and all the rest of it, and how to model and things for the different vocab files that we have on our devices. Yeah, I know, Leah, recorded telehealth AAC session would be good. Vanessa, that's recorded, and I hope you're feeling better. Activity ideas, yeah, so basically you're wanting resources and activities. Is this what I'm picking up? Worksheets. Oh, hey, Elena. Yes, Lauren, I think if we're looking at those kids that are at that people games level, what I'm really finding is that parent coaching is going to be the most successful. Parent coaching, video modelling. I've been chatting also with John and Cindy and some of the LAMP trainers around, I want to create a online sort of platform for parent training, sort of like a 6-session thing around how to do LAMP for parents, where they can come in and do like a 1-hour video session with me where we all go through elements of LAMP, how to set things up at home, and then they go and do it. They send me videos, and we've got that element of parent peer-to-peer discussion with me as well as through the session. So we're hoping to write that and roll that out while we're all trapped in homes. Yeah, there could be an adult that may give consent, Carol. I'll ask some of ours, but I think the adults aren't going to be at the level we're wanting to see. Because I know personally, I want to see somebody doing telehealth successfully with my kids that I work with, and they're the level 3 kids. But yeah, good idea. Yeah, I really think for that early communicator, discoverer, you know, 1-word, high distractibility population, parent coaching, and to be honest, what a great opportunity and time for us to really encourage our parents to you know, feel more empowered